Today I want to talk to you about entrepreneurship. Steve Dotto here. How the heck are you doing this fine day? In our comments this week, Mike Shaw commented on my post when I was talking about overcoming limiting beliefs. And Mike said, sadly, it starts out with the fact that he just lost his radio gig at the end of August. He's a new station owner, etc. I've been there, seen so many of my friends in the radio business and TV business who have been transitioned out of the space because of automation in radio and a whole variety of other things that go on in the radio space. So first of all, my condolences, Mike. He's been dabbling in YouTube on and off for years. Time to get serious, he says. He's 55, I love tech, and have lots of other interests. My biggest struggle so far is picking a topic, and he loves our videos. Well, first of all, Mike, thanks very much for commenting, and our condolences on losing your job. But look at the attitude Mike has. He's driving ahead, and I know he's going to do well. But here's the thing that struck me when I read Mike's comment: is 55 is the exact age that my dad was when we had a seminal moment in our life. My dad was let go from his job. My dad was a professional engineer. He worked his entire career for a single engineering firm. He was a company man through and through. He believed in them. He passed on job offers from other firms who headhunted him in the heydays in the 60s and early 70s. And then when he was at the height of his earning potential, they let him go so that they could have cheaper, younger engineers do the same job he did. And my dad was devastated. Actually, I got it. 2 seconds. Humor me. Ever since my dad passed, I've had this on my desk or in the background. It says Lino Dotto. My dad's name was Lino. He used one of those clicky things. You know what were they called? You guys will remember. Dynatype. Dynatype. He labeled everything. My dad labeled everything. This is precious to me. This is my dad's slide rule. It's got the name El Dotto right there on it, El Dotto. This was on his desk and in his hands every working day of his life from the time he graduated university. This was the slide rule that he used to build everything. Now, for those of you who might be watching this vlog that don't know what a slide rule is, this is the computer of his era. The engineers use this to do everything from deciding on the tensile strength of elements of bridges through planning trajectories of satellites orbiting the moon. They did everything on the slide reel. And he taught me as a kid to use it. He taught me as a little kid to use it. I don't remember how anymore. I'm sure there's some great YouTube tutorials on it. But I keep it in the background. Anyways, that's a completely personal aside. And I know my dad's slide rule is there. My dad, the engineer. But here was what happened personally to me as a young man when my dad was let go from his job. I saw how devastated he was. Now, he did some entrepreneurial ventures after that, but his heart wasn't really in it. But that changed my dad's energy for the rest of his life. And it wounded him deeply. It was a wound which never healed. The betrayal that he felt from the corporate entity, which was a family-run business. It was a large family-run engineering firm that should have known better. And it didn't. And it saw him as disposable and let him go after all of those years. And so people that he'd looked up to had completely betrayed him in his mind. I believe that was the moment that I recognized that I would never trust somebody else in the employment world again. I wouldn't, and I don't mean trust. I realize that probably comes out harsh, but that I would never work for somebody. That my goal would always be to be my own boss, for my own mistakes and my own capabilities to be the limiting factors in how successful I was, and I wouldn't have the fear of approval of somebody senior constantly hanging over my head, and I wouldn't be caught in a political game. I mean, there are politics everywhere, but I wouldn't be caught in some political game for advancement or for job security. Those were the seeds of this entrepreneur. Was my dad's, when my father, at the age of 55, was told that he was no longer a member of the engineering firm that he was at for so very many years. And as I say, it was a defining moment. I think a lot of us in our age group are going to be going through those defining moments, or if we're not, we anticipate them already right now. is that there's going to be transitions happening, and entrepreneurship is going to be, entrepreneurship is the, it might be for many of us the only security that we have in the future. We're the only ones that we can rely on. The only people that you can rely on are yourselves. When we look at a job market today, when we look at the job market, anybody who's transitioning out of an existing job, who's over the age of 45 probably, looking for a job, is recognizing that ageism is there. We've talked about it in a previous vlog. We know that ageism is an issue, and job security is an issue. So if you're 50 years old now and you're transitioning out of a job, are you going to take employment at a lower level with somebody else and work for them and build their business for a salary, work for dollars for hours and build a salary for 10 years till maybe you're deemed expendable again, and then have built the equity of that business through your imagination, through your efforts, and made that business more valuable, but you are discarded as a part? That's the thing about being an entrepreneur. Is yes, we might be paid less or we might be paid more depending on, how talented we are, but all of the energy that we put into building our own venture is equity that we're building in our future. Nobody can take that away from us. If you can't be transitioned out of your own thing. Now, obviously, strategically, there's a lot of things that go into being an entrepreneur and figuring out, making sure that you have a business model that is sustainable, that you have an exit plan if possible, that is something that you're passionate about, that's in an industry that can support you. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but there's a lot of pieces to just finding a job today, isn't there? Especially for somebody over the age of 45 or 50. There's a lot of subtleties in that as well. I believe entrepreneurship is going to become a more and more sought after or valuable trait. Now, it doesn't come naturally to everybody. As I say, my dad tried entrepreneurship. He tried to do it for a period of time. He had smatterings of success, but he was never really wholeheartedly behind it. I think that comes down to what I talked about in the last blog. I think my dad had limiting beliefs. He always saw himself as part of a team, not as the entire entity. And so he didn't see that he could succeed as an individual, as an independent. That was just in his nature. And that's not a criticism. That's just the way he was. I was young enough and I still had enough kind of formative years to go as I saw him go through that I stripped away those issues myself, recognizing that as an entrepreneur, I would have to overcome those things. I don't think I never actually had that thought process, but I think it kind of in the subtext of evolving as an entrepreneur, those sorts of beliefs and those sorts of habits kind of fell into place, if that makes sense. I hope it does. It makes sense to me, but it might not make sense to you. I hope it does. But that was the topic that I wanted to cover today. I wanted to talk to you about the seeds of an entrepreneur. Where are the seeds sown? Are the seeds of entrepreneurship in you? Do you feel them? Do you feel them starting to blossom? Are they sown out of fear? Are they sown out of frustration? I'm not sure those are the two best places for entrepreneurship to germinate. But once they blossom, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, how they started. It's how you nurture it as it grows and how you evolve yourself as an entrepreneur. That's gonna be the most important part. I mean, it's obviously better that you have always desired to do your own thing, and you've imagined and you've play acted it in your mind in different aspects, and so you're prepared for a lot of the rigors of being an entrepreneur. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Those of you who are entrepreneurs, where were the seeds sown? Where did your entrepreneurship journey start? Was it something that was forced on you? Was it something you embraced? Was it something you always sought? Or is it something like me that you've always been? I don't think, even when I worked for somebody else, I was always an entrepreneur. And long before the term side hustle was anything that anybody else, that we heard, from the millennials as we hear now, I was doing side hustles even when I was working for somebody else. I always had something going on the side that I wanted to build into my thing. I always wanted my own thing. But for me, it all started on a day I can still see my dad's. We had a lathe in the basement, a metal lathe. My dad was the quintessential engineer. We had a metal shop in our basement, and I went downstairs, and Dad was turning something on the lathe, and there was just something profoundly different about him. and he told me that he'd been laid off. And my dad wasn't a super emotional guy, but he was pretty emotional at that moment, I could tell. And I could just remember just a lot of silence and just a lot of not knowing what was next. It had a deep, deep impact. That scene is seared into my memory. Love to hear your comments. Till next time. I love reading your comments and suggestions, so please post below. I do read every single one. If you like this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends or colleagues who may find it useful. Now make sure you've subscribed and hit that notification bell, and if you have time, check out some of our other videos right over there. Till next time, I'm Steve Dotto. Have fun storming a castle.